Right. Well, welcome everybody to this lecture on how to self-review. This is going to be pretty basic presentation. I think most of the time we're going to spend on the examples and answering the questions, Q&A, basically. But the things I wanted to go over is just how to actually self-review, just what you need to look for, what are the common problems usually people or maybe even coaches sometimes have when trying to self-review. And I think just how to practice, how to just actually implement that stuff. We're mostly going to focus on just the ideas, what you guys need to be doing, what you can be looking for when self-reviewing. But yeah, if there are going to be any questions, just feel free to open the chat and ask those there. I'm going to read the chat. It's going to be on my second monitor pretty much. And yeah, for anybody who wants to join just this discussion, yeah, you guys can also unmute sometimes. Okay, let's start with the first slide. The first slide is common problems when VOD reviewing. And the first most common I see, and this is just after 7 years of coaching experience, and it's with any coaches or just VOD review. When my students tell me, that is how I self-VOD review. What they tell me is, I'm focusing on losing fights whenever you lost the fight or deaths. Yeah, maybe if you died, they think, okay, this is pretty good representation. And a lot of times that might be true. That is something what you can look for. But the thing about this idea is a lot of times your lost fights or deaths, it might be not as good representation of actually are you just losing the game because of that fight or just because of that death? Because even in Marvel Rivals, there are gonna be situations where you gonna have good deaths and bad deaths. An example of good deaths would be if you have a spawn advantage and you just traded 1v1 with somebody. Let's say you play DPS or support, you just traded 1v1, and that might be just fine because you have a spawn advantage, so you can instantly try to go in and take the map control. Yeah, there might be also another example where you died, but you forced out a lot of ultimates. Maybe you forced out 2 or 3 ultimates. And the thing about lost fights, why it's also might be not as valuable sometimes, is that in some cases, if you lost the fights, it might be, well, just what I mentioned before. Maybe it's because of your ultimates, maybe because of just how many ultimates the enemy used. If they just used everything, they used 6, it's definitely fine. It's okay that you lost that fight, pretty much. But there might be cases where lost fights actually might make sense to look for. So I'm thinking, what is better? Usually, instead of doing this, rather think, how can you add more value? How can you have more value in the moment? And try to just find a proactive way. Try to find a proactive way of what you're gonna do in the map to add value. So you can review your fights and just maybe find out how do you bait an enemy, or how do you bait an enemy to rotate in unfavorable positions, or maybe that could be you bait certain ultimate. Yeah, I'm gonna add that in here. Actually, might be really good as well. So ultimates, and I think for this it's pretty much it. But there also might be some other small things, some other small mistakes just related to this idea. But the second is most important, is a lot of times people tend to list every possible mistake they do right in the moment, and it can be okay to do, but a lot of times it's overwhelming. I think a lot of times if you have a lot to work on, your motivation is going to drop, your confidence might drop, and it's going to be difficult to practice. Imagine if I'm practicing XYZ concept at the same time I'm practicing a lot of ideas. Your working memory is going to be overloaded. I'm going to be really overwhelmed with all those ideas. And that is something what we talked about with some of my recent students as well. I think some of those are even here just joining the class, and I'm gonna use some of the words from my previous students on just how we did that self-review and how it helped them out. Okay, third most common mistake is focusing too much on mechanics. I cannot even say how many times people been messaging me and they send me the form, and the first thing they list on what they struggle with is they struggle with mechanics. They tell me, "Oh, Gefest, well, I cannot hit all my shots. My mechanics are terrible. My mechanics is just I cannot aim, I cannot shoot, I can't clear head." And I think that's understandable. There might be some problems with mechanics, but a lot of that it's solvable through your decisions and positioning, especially in the games like Marvel Rivals, or if some of you guys play the game like Overwatch. I think it's also possible. A lot of this, if you have a position or decisions which allow you to land easier shots, then mechanics might be solved. I will give you an example. Let's say if somebody is just going towards the main, you're just trying to go towards the team, and you try to take an angle. Well, I think it's actually might be better to just show you in a game. Yeah, I think I will do it later. But yeah, there might be cases when you just have the person because they actively strafing against you. You have to just simplify. When they actively strafing against you face to face, it's just difficult to land shots. But let's say I take a position which creates opportunity for me to land the shots because they move in a straight line. For me, they just go left to right and it's straight line. It becomes easier for you to land shots. Just one example, but this mechanic problem might be solved through positioning, or it also might be solved through decisions. Example of that would be, let's say I'm predicting stuff. I'm predicting where the guy's gonna be on the map, where the Black Panther is gonna be on the map, or maybe Spider-Man, and you simply can't place your crosshair at the better spot. And that's why a lot of top-funded players, you see them actually land those insane shots a lot of times is because of good decisions, is because they have this great awareness, in my opinion. Okay, so this is the most common problems. I see 3 common problems. Do you have any questions on this? Will this be on the website? Yes, it will be. If it will not be, it's always gonna be on the Google Doc. Oh, by the way, I am Jaren. Sorry, can you just mute yourself because there is a typing? I hear you typing. I think everything's fine, yeah? Okay. Oh, yeah, but do you have any questions, guys, about all of this, the common problems? Maybe anything else to add, actually? What kind of problems you notice in your self-VOD reviews? Just, there might be something. What do you notice? Yeah, I see a few people typing. By the way, guys, don't forget if you... You can unmute, actually. You can unmute right now, if anybody want to speak. So for the typing, all good. No problem. Okay, let me take a look. So there's a big read. Okay, this is going to be a long pause, but since you said we can ask questions, I'll let it rip. For context, my brother and I do a strange plus Magneto, currently in Diamond 1. Maybe this is the best for the end. Routing. Okay, sometimes it's difficult to tell if the routing is the issue or something else is. When do you make the call to change up the route to objective? Most follow the tanks, so I'm assuming routing is up to us. Yeah, makes sense. So what it's based on? When do you call to change the route? So if you're playing the tank, in my opinion, most important thing for you to look for is make sure you push active angles of the enemy team. So what that means is if they have a sort of powerful position which you need to deal with, then you gotta be there because you need to absorb important pressure. You need to just make sure the attention is on you and not on the rest of your team. And that's why sometimes your team, they don't even have to follow you. They can just do something else. They can try to just be somewhere else on the map, and it's completely fine. As long as you contribute to the same area, it should be good, I think, most of the time. But there might be cases, why can't you change the route as well? Maybe it can be based on ultimates as well. That is a pretty big factor too. I think, yeah, those two, what comes to mind right away, positioning, ultimates. There also might be something small factors in the game, but if you're talking about the team setting, maybe if we just screaming as a team, I think the biggest factor might be your planning as a team. So when I'm coaching a team, what we prioritize is how do we synchronize pressure together? So answering the questions, what do we do, when we do it, and where we do it on the map. So if the plan changed, then let's change the routing. Okay, let me see. Sometimes it's difficult. What are some... Okay, so then we did that. What are some good options, good routes to get around common chokes that you really like? Okay, this one's a little bit too specific. I might get to that. Yeah, I might get to that later. Tokyo, last point, Tokyo. Yeah, I think we need map examples, but I will keep that question in mind. Okay. Another thing, switching composition. If something just doesn't feel like it isn't working, and we tried different routes. When you're watching VODs, what are the times when you say I should have switched? When it should switch to character here. I say, okay, so most of it should be based on the big picture, in my opinion. A lot of people would say, well, they're counter swaps. You can swap the character, play X character because they have Y character. A lot of times, I don't think it's the right thing to do. What you rather be doing is have your comfort pool. What are you playing right now? And swap the characters based on your comfort pool. Swap those accordingly to the big pictures. So if you have a certain composition and you have a certain map you play on, you know this is good for your character. Maybe you got a lot of high guns to use. Okay, then you can just add the character with more mobility, or maybe there are long range routes. Yeah, the long range map. Okay, let's play a long range character in your comfort pool. Again, not just random, but it's in your comfort pool. Then I think you should be fine. So if you're not making a switch based on the big picture, then this is bad. We just want to look at the big picture first, in my opinion. Okay, good questions though. I'm actually gonna get back. I'm not sure if we will review this, how to get through the choke, but yeah, it's more specific. Maybe we create another presentation of that as well. Just kind of go over that topic later, but I think that's a good question. Okay, so finally, to start with how to WOD review. Remember guys, we just went over problems. Just common problems. And now, diagnosis. The first step to identify what to work on is just like you go to the doctor, you need diagnose. You need to understand what you're missing. What do we need to work on? So the first question is, what I'm gonna work on? And you need to work on one of the themes, typically. This is how I view the game. This is how I view Marvel Rivals and Overwatch as well, because the game's kind of similar. I view it through the layers of decisions, positioning, timing, tempo, and mechanics. Okay, so kind of 5 layers. And I think the most important is starting with decisions. And the second is positioning timing, in my opinion. So we can always watch a game through those layers and try to understand what you're gonna work on. And I think you don't have to really analyze a lot, because there might be, as I mentioned, there might be this one type of students where, or coaches where they just give you too general problem. Like some people will tell you, okay, dude, you're struggling with mechanics, or you struggle with decisions. I don't think it's good. It's not something you can apply in your games right away. And there's also another degree, yeah, kind of another side of this medal is where people sometimes, just students or coaches, they tell you a lot of specific things to work on, but because there's so many details and so many things listed, it's really hard. And I think I mentioned it here. Your working memory is going to be overloaded. Our working memory as humans, it's really limited. You cannot work on multiple tasks usually. That's why I suggest you need to work on one theme at a time. Okay? So once you feel kind of, again, you just gotta choose. You just gotta choose one theme to work on. It just has to be intuitively. Maybe intuitively I'm struggling with, I feel like most of my games I've been struggling with decisions, or maybe most of my time I've been struggling with positioning. So it's kind of vague, it's kind of general topic, but you can choose that one theme and watch the game through the lens of that theme. So let's say we struggle with positioning. What kind of specific topics would be for positioning? Okay, I can actually write it down. Yeah, example. Positioning, you can maybe pay attention to your cover. You can pay attention to your angles. You can pay attention to just how you contesting high ground. Let's just call something like power positions. Maybe a more general term. There's a lot of stuff you can be working on. That is something what I go over in my sessions. I even have this spreadsheets with all the concepts listed, so it's easy for me to track what are we trying to work on right now. But yeah, once you choose the theme, you can specify later, but it's okay to just choose one. After that, what you need to do is to watch every fight and write down specifics within this theme. So this is what we're doing here. Exactly, yeah? Let me actually just place this. I think it's going to be more important to place this one here. I'm going over positioning. Okay, let me list the things I'm trying to just work on. But you have to watch a game, yeah? And this is where I will give you an example. This is how you can VOD review games. Just, we're gonna have one more slide and then we're gonna go over that. But once you've worked on, yeah, you just kind of been watching every fight and writing down specifics you need to work on. You need to identify the pattern. You need to identify the biggest problem. So maybe a lot of times you've been kind of watching the game and thinking, I'm struggling with cover. Yeah, it really seemed like I was out of position quite a lot. Yeah, I was not close to cover, or maybe you've been not taking the best power positions, something like that. And those goals, once you identify the problem, it has to be simple and concise. And I think I'm just gonna give you an example right away. And I wanted to use one of my students' examples. We've done 2 sessions so far, and one session we've been going over something like target priority, I think. So I will use that as an example. Let me just jump in on Marvel Rivals and I'll show you. I'll show you that game. And I think the student's here. Actually, I think the student, yeah, it's you, Jaren. It's you right there. I'm gonna use your example. And by the way, guys, do you have any questions about this slide over here? Right before we jump into just showing how you need to go over everything, what's listed here. Yeah, I see somebody's typing. You guys can unmute as well. It's fine if you unmute and ask questions if you have any. I'll be glad to specify, maybe. Okay, if there are no questions, let's move. Let's move into the example. I'm gonna use this game, and there's gonna be Hulk player, because I already know, and it's gonna be easier for me to just kind of tell you guys how it looks like, the process overall of what reviewing. So the first step is really just kind of feel like, just understand what your struggle is. Okay, let it load. I think it takes a little bit of time. Okay, I also think I need to, okay, yeah, everything's good. Everything's good now. Okay, let's just jump into POV of this player here. This is Hulk, and what you need to start with is just, usually, let's say I'm this player here, and a lot of my games, and this is what they've been telling me, they told me that it feels like they struggle with what kind of targets they need to go for. It always seemed like they're not on the best target, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe there was also one question about the positioning, yeah? They already kind of identified what they needed to work on, in my opinion. And they've been actually really right with the theme. With the theme, they need to pay attention to. So if we look at this, okay, if we look at this presentation, your theme here, if we struggle with target priority, overall it feels like my decisions are really bad. Yeah, would be your main theme you can review your game through. Yeah, you use it as the main idea. Okay, so let's just watch and kind of look at the decisions of the players. So it feels like the start of your E, yeah, when they use the stun, because you can just CC anybody, you can just keep them in the same place. It seems like not the best. Yeah, okay, maybe you can note it, just write it down somewhere. Okay, now watching the next decisions. So playing over here, engaging, going after the Venom. It seems that we kind of did synchronize with the rest of our team, but let's watch next. Okay, so using our E again, using it on the Venom. Okay. Now going for the damage in the backline, so kind of going after Hala, a little bit chasing them a little bit, yeah? And keep punching, sure. Let's watch one more time. Let's watch what they do with the E. And see, and you can kind of already see the pattern, yeah? So we just didn't watch through the lens of positioning, we didn't watch through the lens of mechanics, but it was mostly decisions, yeah? Decisions, what are we going for? What is the right target, I think? This is the most common things within your decision. So maybe how do you use your abilities? That is another thing. Or how do you use your ultimates? So we kind of saw multiple times already, they use the E, in my opinion, not in the best spot. So why is that the case? Because in my opinion, the tank, whenever you're trying to stop somebody, you have to stop the most active person most of the time. So that is what we want to pay attention to. Remember that example. Okay, so this right at the start, when they went after the Venom, just trying to stop them, yeah? So see, they just not as active. Yeah, maybe if they would hit it, yes, it stuns them, but decisions-wise, is it good decision to even try, yeah? Or is it even good decision? Let's just watch their next. I think next is gonna be just right in 15 seconds, yeah? So it's gonna be right here. Okay, is a good decision to try to stun this Venom? Well, maybe, yeah, maybe sort of. Yeah, it seems like there's nobody else who is the most aggressive right now. But what if we look after even bad opportunities, just winding west, even more cooldowns and such? But I think it's good, but yeah, it just seems that I just watch more. Okay, so we already watched this, gonna skip. Yeah, this one maybe just let this Hala slightly walk in a little bit more, so the rest of your team can do stuff. Okay, let's watch the next one. And they use... just going after the backline. I think they're pretty decent at just how they use the shields. And yeah, for example, right now, they're using the E on the backline as well, just going after the Cloak and Dagger. Yeah, it's a good decision. Well, maybe. Oh, sorry, the Luna Snow. Yeah, maybe it's okay, because you just need to finish the fight right now. And there's something, again, you can list. Yep. The shield, maybe not necessary, but this is the start of the fight. I mean, the end of the fight, so it's alright. You can get it by the time when you will start the next one. Okay, so they go for the poke, using the right click, and kind of keep playing this right side, yeah? Keep playing the right side angle. I think position-wise, it's alright. It feels like they could be on some sort of wall as well, but... yeah, for example, here, you can see it again. With their E, they keep using it in the backline. This is what I mean. You can always write down the things you thinking you could get more value with, and just try to test that theory later. Just try to test the theory of how you think it would be more valuable to use the ability. Because there are a lot of things you can do better. There are a lot of things you can just try to achieve on the map. So I don't think you have to list a lot of things. But already we can kind of see that, well, they, I think, not using their E in the best way, in my opinion. It's just not the best time sometimes. Okay, let me just also show you the example on the second point. I remember there was a good example, few good examples of the target priority, just because they need to go after active angles a little bit more. I think it shows over here. So for example now, yeah, is a good or bad target to go for? Well, if there's nobody else, then I think, sure, this might be the case. If we look, just zoom out a little bit, there's nobody else who's maybe taking powerful position or just taking a better spot. So this might be just fine, yeah? And the rest of your team can also follow up. You can wait for them to crash and then go in. But now, yeah, we're going after those guys. Yeah, let's just kind of see the general damage. Is it good or bad? Yeah, we're just starting, go after their backline. Is it good in terms of the target priority, yeah? Maybe not as much, because the rest of your team now is in the back, okay? And let's just say, after we identified this pattern, it just seems like we're not going after the best target, yeah? We just need to, in my opinion, if we simplify, go after more active angles, more go after more active people. So what is based on? It can be them using cooldowns. Maybe somebody just ended up like maybe Venom used their swing, and maybe Hala used their mobility as well. You can just punish them. Maybe it's also based on their position as well, and it also might be something like their yeah, maybe even their ultimate. Sometimes if they commit something, you just go in and punish the most active angle, so you actually start absorbing pressure in the right area. Okay, so I'm just gonna exit the replay. I'll just go back at the presentation. Okay. So see, we went over those steps. I was mostly watching through decisions part already. That's what the player told me. They've been mostly struggling with. It felt like with decisions. We choose one theme, we review the game through one, through the lens of that theme, and mostly again looking at abilities, maybe looking at the ultimate. Sometimes you can also try to look at stuff like your target priority. And in my opinion, just after that review, I told the player that, well, a lot of times when we were watching this, it felt like that target priority was not the best, especially with the E. Yeah, we could be choosing more active targets, yeah, more valuable angles. And after you identified this pattern, after you just identified that biggest problem, you want to make sure you're gonna work on that. So if this problem is simple and concise, well, how would phrase it? Yeah, how would phrase the target priority, I think, for us? Let's just try to go, for example, you could start with the task of, let's try to go after people who more committed with their position, so more active with their position. Maybe they're in the front line, maybe they're taking an angle, somewhere you can just use the E on them. Or, oh, sorry, that was the question, or I just heard somebody. All right. Oh, let me see. So it's like golf, don't change your whole stance, but change one thing at a time. Yeah, if you have that spreadsheet of all factors to work on and can post it, that would be awesome. Well, maybe not today. I might do it later. This the spreadsheet is just for my use. It's pretty chaotic, but yeah, I might use it later. I might post it later. I feel so honored that you're about to roast me. Well, I'm just using your session as an example. Our session as an example, and we can we can take advantage of that 100%. But yeah, once you identify the pattern and you have this simple and concise goal, for example, in our case, let's try to punish more active positioning. Yeah. Again, I know it's been brief. Maybe I can dive in deeper into that, but after that, you just go into practice. And I will get back to this. I just want to note, how do you do diagnosis? This diagnosis word review, you shouldn't do too often, in my opinion. You can just spend 30 minutes word review and do it once, twice per month. I think once, twice per month is enough. Usually, you don't need to look for big diagnosis, big problems a lot of times. So maybe with this, yeah, we can list multiple problems. Me, usually in the sessions, yeah, I'm not gonna give too many problems to work on. Yeah, if it's just one session, you're gonna focus on one, two. But you, with your diagnosis, you can just even list multiple problems. Potentially, I think it's possible to list multiple problems, identify kind of the pattern, the biggest, let's just say, the biggest problems, and work on those. Maybe just list three, okay? List big three problems and work on those over months. But later, you can dive in deeper into those themes. And this is what I'm gonna elaborate on. How do you do that in the next slides? But yeah, once you've done this, you've done diagnosis, you can just practice. And the first important thing is your mindset is just something we talked about in the previous classes, just making sure that your confidence is solved, that you go in a match with the right mindset, you're actually able to apply all the things, you have this increased focus. Yeah, maybe you play at a specific time of the day, you take breaks, maybe there's something else, but just whatever keeps your mindset. Whatever makes it easy for you to work on the things. And the second idea is, yeah, you just need to set goals. And this is what we talked about today. Once we have these goals, it's just because it's clear and concise, it helps you to work on all that stuff. So, an example, like I mentioned, instead of saying let's work on positioning, say let's work on how to use cover, taking high ground, flanking, and etc. It has to be specific. And the other concepts, just whatever can help your practice. I think it's mentioned in our previous doc. It's in the previous presentation on consistency. I will elaborate on the other stuff too. Just whatever we mentioned in the previous presentation. But today I wanted to dive into the self-WOD review. Okay, so once we've done this, once we've done diagnosis, once we've done the practice, let's say that player they've been practicing really hard. They've been practicing going after active angles. I think it's not only about the E, yeah, it's also just about maybe going after somebody just generally out of, not out of position, but it's just making sure we contribute to the active angles, making sure we absorb the pressure in the area where most of your team can do stuff. That's what that's what I told them in the VOD review. And later, we just can dive deeper into this. So for example, we've been working target priority really hard. And how you can self-VOD review next is by watching your practice, just what you've been practicing, like your target priority, and what have you saw the lens of that seam. So I'll give you an example. The next session they told me they jumped, I think they improved like 1 rank. They just went up one rank higher. Yeah, they went 1 rank higher. I'm just gonna pause the replay. And this is what they sent me. They sent me this replay. Okay, and here, you just want to focus on your next... Yeah, just focus on this problem, what we talked about, basically. Let me jump in. Okay, the start of the match is here. Okay. Just takes a little bit time to load. Okay, should be all good. Okay, so let's just watch. Are they going after active angles? Are they actually trying to synchronize the pressure with the rest of their team? Yeah, I'm just gonna watch through the lens of that specific scene. Right now, it feels like they're going after the backline. It feels that the rest of their team can do something. Yeah, it feels like, well, sort of, this is possible for everybody to contribute. So it definitely looks better than that example. I think the last fight I showed you, I remember when they went off the backline really deep. Yeah, I know there have been not too many examples, but anyway. So they went in, they used their shield, they get out, and after that they go after Iron Fist. Okay? And this is where you can, again, identify, is it the best target for you to go for? Is it a really active angle, or could you be doing something else? In my opinion, this is not good enough, because Iron Fist can easily escape, and we cannot just instantly kill that. Yeah, you usually choose, okay, what's valuable space for me to absorb pressure at or get kills? Sometimes, yeah, as an exception, if you're able to just finish the 1 HP target or something, that's fine. And by the way, a lot of people would question, well, this Iron Fist is in my backline. Yeah, sure, he's in the backline, but at this time, I'm thinking, is it gonna matter more compared to this right now? And it feels like there's more valuable pressure we could be doing towards those guys first, and later, maybe once there's a better opportunity, we could try to go after something like Iron Fist. Okay, so we just push them away, but they easily escape. After that, we go after Baki, we escape. Now we're on Iron Fist. So target priority, like this one, going after Moon Knight, again, feels okay to me, because they take powerful angle, and this is something, how they can create a space. They can just push our team back a little bit. The rest of these guys taking space too. But once we push that, we can try to choose any other valuable angle, maybe try to go towards the right side, or try to go after somebody else. But see, they make a decision of trying to go after more deeper angle. And there, okay, this might make sense, but what about the Baki? What about the Loki? Yeah, why not to go after them while the rest of my team is over here? So we start absorbing pressure in a valuable space. They kind of started walking towards that area. It was not as necessary. Yeah, so even though the target priority, it feels like it's improved, right? So maybe, let's say, you could just say the target priority feels better, maybe in some way. But after you've done the VOD review, you can just specify the details. What do you think you need to adjust? What do you need to adjust within the sim you've been practicing? So if it's target priority, in my opinion, from what I watched, maybe you guys could catch that as well. Okay, let's just watch one more fight. Now I'll show you what I noticed. Okay, so they kind of just farming there. I wanted to say they farming their mech, and you know, no watch they have diva, they farming mech. Yeah, they farming their form, they farming their hawk, and now they get back in the form and go after the Iron Fist, which is fine, I think. Yeah, this angle is something what's more scary, and I think the Moon Knight as well is pretty scary as well, especially if they use the ultimate. So in my opinion, it's one of those targets. Yeah, probably one of those two are fine. Maybe even just considering because the Moon Knight has the ultimate, it's easier to go after them. Yeah, but see what they do next. Yeah, they just jump in. Might feel like that is okay to focus on. That's fine to do, but I don't think it's right. Okay, it's just not as valuable play to do. Why? So a lot of times when we're trying to go after active angles, because we just specified, let's try to go after active angles. My question is, if I'm trying to get value on that concept, is am I doing that consistently? Am I able to have this higher uptime on that idea? Okay, so what would be better play right now? Okay, let's just go back. Okay, so I went after valuable Iron Fist. Now I'm going after the backline. But is that the right play? Okay, I want actually pause and I will let you guys tell me. What do you think? What do you got? I'm really curious. What do you think? Just type in. let me read the questions meanwhile. Would it be best to ask the DPS to help out the backline? Depends. It can be. Usually I highly suggest to make sure that you're solving whatever you need to do on the map super active stuff. Just, you know, make sure you bait out the stuff, maybe through your positioning, maybe abilities. I wouldn't ask for help because sometimes people give up valuable space, but it's possible. What are the factors you consider when as a tank you should go help the backline versus keeping pressure in the front line? At what point is it your fault they die or if they leave front line? Yeah, so pretty much factors, active angles, and that is something what we talked about with that student here. We need to constantly be on the valuable angles at all times. Valuable angles all times, and because you absorb that pressure, because you are pushing the enemy team back, let's say super activity. Again, I really want to emphasize, you absorbing pressure through your proactive play, and because you do that, then your backline can live more. Maybe you get trades, by the way, it's pretty common in those games, guys. I think it's pretty fine, it's okay that you trade your backline sometimes, especially if you have kind of dive teams. Here it's not as divey, in my opinion, but yeah, in some cases, if you have a lot of mobility, it's possible to trade. It's possible to trade backlines. I feel like that situation and kind of depend on having off tank. Probs should be doing that as main tank, trying to hold space. I see. Makes sense, actually. Yeah, main tank, they need to stay at holding kind of this frontline spaces a little bit more, in my opinion. Yeah, let me see. Was the Moon Knight using ult on the backline? I think helping the backline with him and then applying pressure to the front better. Yeah. Yeah, you're actually right. So you got it. So why why going after Moon Knight is better? What is based on? Yeah. We can just see because it's more valuable position. They trying to take that off angle, they can just simply go after the backline over here. And what it does is it pushes your team back. Your backline goes back, and now your tank cannot hold space over here. So your tank is gonna die. Okay? Now, the thing you could be doing then with your active pressure is just try to go after those active angles more. Just instead of jumping to the front line now, we could be jumping on the Moon Knight. Okay? Yeah, he has high gun. Yeah, exactly. High gun is important. High gun is important, but you can also have those other variables, such as can they do a lot of burst damage, which they can. Do they have ultimate? Actually, they did have it, so that is something we can also pay attention to. Maybe there's something like I'm thinking, yeah, cooldowns. Yeah, just cooldowns wise, are they using anything? And they actually did use. They did use something in the backline. If we pay attention to it, then we can make the right decision. Yeah. So we just need to go after this right now. So after we punish the Iron Fist, I think you can go after this right away. And you can do it on any role. So see what we went over is through the entire process of we identified the seam. Yeah, we reviewed that seam with the player. After that, we can just self-review again and look at this specific idea and see are there any tweaks to make at this point of time? Yeah, are there any small things maybe you can adjust when applying that seam and just being better target priority? Okay. I just watched one. I actually want you to watch a little bit more of this, so you get an idea. Okay, let me see the next. I think the next fights might be good ones to watch too. Okay, so this one we've been holding. Eventually, the enemy team gets the point, and now it's time for us to reset. Yeah, and now again, you can make the decision. How can I contest valuable angles? How can I just go after them? It feels that we're getting poked out too much. I definitely think it's better to just try to give up some space to get healed. Even in the spawn room, it's fine, so you'll not get staggered. But sure, it happens. And then later, trying to reset and go after the back. So see, it actually feels like, okay, they're going after the most active angle right now, which is here, especially when Cloak and Dagger is using ultimate. I think that's alright. Yeah, so that is something you can do. It's like this one is interesting, actually. Is a lot of times I tell people you gotta set up first and later you gotta fight, but there might be cases when you can ignore the setup, and it's usually because there's an ultimate. Somebody's using an ultimate, you can just go in a fight right away. Ultimate usually matters more if we compare ultimate to position. Ideally, you want to have both. Ideally, you want to have both ultimate and position together. So ideally, I would maybe try to set up somewhere over here and then drop. And maybe try to just also have Cloak and Dagger ultimate, but it's fine. If you don't have the best setup, just go in and at least contribute to the ultimate. But see, later, what they do is they go back a little bit more. Yeah, and it's not as valuable. Because why? Because again, we cannot go after valuable targets after the best targets just... Again, active angles. That's how I always phrase it. Yeah, there are some angles here. Everybody seems like kind of stacked on the main, but there might be people trying to take this top, or might be people taking this top. Yeah, if they're not doing that, then we can go after main. But the right play is just set up to be able to fight. So see, this is something they struggled with. We can identify the pattern. They need to have less, this is how I like to call it, they need to have less linear rotation. Whenever they trying to just go after active angles, instead of going front to back, or instead of just going from their team towards the enemy, they could just simply be jumping to the left or the right on the maps, depending on situation, and having this high uptime to just constantly go after their backline. Okay, and I know, well, when I know it might be tough to exactly for players exactly identify this right away, but see, when you're watching all your fights, you just need to watch every fight through the lens of this idea, write down the things you think you could be doing better within that scene, and then later you can try to tweak this, tweak the specific idea. And that's what I've been doing with this guy most of the time. Most of the fights, they've been having those I'll just say linear engagements, but instead they need to have non-linear, trying to just go to the sides a little bit more. Okay, let me read questions. Use ult while on top of cooldown, ult push them away and jiggle them off to the cart. Yeah, so you referring to that example, when they used the Cloak and Dagger used the ultimate, yeah, it's fine to push them away. It's definitely fine to push, especially with the Cloak and Dagger ultimate. You can just utilize that and kind of stay in it. Yeah, the enemy Cloak also use their... Yeah, of course. So if they use their ultimate, it's fine to give up space, but don't give up space and don't go back towards the team, but go back to your angle. Go back to your angle so you have high uptime. Yeah. And most of the fights is just gonna be that. For that player, they kind of tend to jump in and just create this linear engagement. Yeah, this is a great example. One more for you. So they start at the front line, jump in the front, but instead they could be having last lane engagement of going from here to going to here. And then later, they could try to even boop the enemy in towards your sidelines, towards your team, or maybe just try to trap somebody in a corner. It's also possible. Stuff like that. Okay, and it's just based on this target priority theme. Okay, I'm just gonna exit the replay. Just get back to the presentation. Make sure we went over all the steps. Yeah, so once you found that pattern, in that VOD review, that player, I found the pattern in a way that they need to create this last linear engagement or disengagement. And now this is what they need to fix. Okay, this is improvements they can make. And how do you fix it is, yeah, just if this happens, because you don't have this high uptime with your target priority, you fix it through last linear engagements. And after that, you can also identify what improvements do you see. And in my opinion, I saw that a lot of times they've been synchronizing the rest of their team quite well. Oh, sorry, there's a noise in the background. I think somebody... It's Mr. Incognito. Yeah, I think it's... I think you need to mute, please. Yeah.
My fault.
Yeah, okay, thank you. What are the factors, things you're thinking about when both teams are starting to commit multiple ults in terms of should we take the L and save ults as was using maybe flip, etc.? It's a good question. Well, this might be good to review in the tempo. It might be good to review in the tempo class. I actually might do that later. But usually what I like to say is make sure you thinking about this score of the fight. This is how I view it. So if somebody uses an ultimate, then you're telling yourself that it's just okay. Let me give you an example. I think it's gonna be easier to just review through example. Okay, I'm gonna jump in the VOD. Yeah, let me see. So maybe we just can go towards that fight exactly when the action was happening. I think even first point, yeah, when we just got a few ultimates, might be a good one to review. Yeah, so should we give up some space? Should we go back? Okay, let's watch. Okay, the fight is about to start. Okay, and there's an ultimate. There's Cloak and Dagger ultimate, and there's a Moon Knight ultimate as well. So how do you decide? Yeah, should you give up space or should you just push? I think the simple question is you need to track how many players you have alive, how many players you have on the enemy team, and just compare the scores of the fight. So right now, both players, they have six people. They have 6 people, and whenever somebody is using the ultimate, I would just do it like +1. Okay, 6 + 1 is 7. The score of the fight is 7. So why I would do that is because right in the game, it makes it simple for you to decide, should you use your ultimate based on the score of the fight to make it even score, so you can actually hold the space, or can you just try to give up the space? So let's say the score is really big. Let's say they're using 3 ultimates. Let's say the enemy team, they use 3 ultimates and we are 6, okay? So the score would be 6 versus 3, or sorry, 6 versus 9, and it would be not ideal, I think. It would be not ideal to do anything unless you have 3 ultimates, so you can give up the space. Typically, if there's just 1-2 kind of points difference, then you can make a decision to try to commit. It's usually based on it, especially if you have your ultimate or not. If you can make the score even, sure, let's commit. Or you can make the score slightly bigger, so I'm engaging the fight, and this Luna... Cloak and Dagger right now. I'm going in a fight. I know, okay, this is 6v6 score right now, and I can make it 7v6 by using the ultimate. So now we have higher tempo, we have an advantage. What that does is, we're gonna push. Yeah, our team will push. And if I'm this Moon Knight, I can think, I actually think that we can make the score even, and let's just use an ultimate and make sure there's a 7v7 score, so we kind of have equal space, so the enemy team is not pushing us as much, okay? That's why I think using the ultimate right now is actually a good decision. Okay, but then you notice there's also another ultimate. So there's they are Cloak and Dagger using the ultimate as well. Okay, so now it's time for us to pull back. But then because we're realizing it's for us time to pull back, our raccoon decided to use their ultimate. So see, it's kind of the game of just the resources. Yeah, that's how I would view it. What? Let me see. Sometimes I would have a big team fight with ults and say, well, with the information at the time, this ult made sense, but ultimately may have been bad because X happened after Y used it. Yeah, I see. Yeah, there are a lot of small factors as well, but in my opinion, in those games, especially in Mario Rivals too, it's good if you just view through the score of the fight. You kind of that's how I've been doing it as well as a player. And that's how I do it right now too when I'm playing this game. In Overwatch, been able to reach top 10. This game I was playing season 0, reach GM, and then after that I kind of just been coaching for the most part. But yeah, anyway, it's the same idea I've been using when climbing, and that's what I suggest to players. And a lot of students define success with this strategy, in my opinion. Once you find with this strategy, you can just try to maybe implement the other small things too. Maybe just consider the positioning and the stuff like what ultimate, because there are more powerful ultimates. Yeah, let's say Cloak and Dagger ultimate is pretty powerful compared to, I think it's more powerful compared to Raccoon, in my opinion. Just how can you push space, how you can just take a lot of the good, I think even multiple angles sometimes. Raccoon, it's kind of might be easy to avoid. It can actually destroy the ultimate as well. Okay, I think support ultimates are actually pretty good in general, but you know, you can compare the strengths of the ultimates too. That's something you can consider later. As a great example, yeah, yeah. So this is how I think about it. But yeah, let's exit the replay. So I want to make sure this makes sense. So this entire process, I know maybe it's kind of brief. I just want to make sure this all of that process. We can again just summarize it. So first, there are some common problems. That's fine, but the most important for you guys is really make sure you do diagnosis. If maybe you want to self-VOD review, just view your VODs to one of the themes. It's either decisions, positioning, time and tempo, mechanics, and just specify what do you notice. Yeah, what do you notice? What kind of concepts you notice you could be doing better while viewing your VODs. Just write down the things and identify a pattern, the biggest problem you need to fix. Now, once you got that biggest problem, you just go in and work on that. Just go into work, choose one. You need to choose one, clear and concise goals. Let's say choose one problem, choose one concept to work on. And after that, after you worked on the concept, you just need to watch your game through the lens of that concept and specify what kind of improvements you use, do you see, what kind of improvements you can make. And then practice again. And then practice again. Do you mostly review the VOD from your PV or do you spend time in the top-down view? POV is fine. POV is fine. You don't want to overcomplicate, I think. If you just self-VOD view, I think your POV is just good enough. A lot of people, there might be again, I think I already mentioned, there might be examples where students, they tend to overanalyze, in my opinion. They just say, okay, this and that. I also watched through support perspective, maybe I watched through the tank perspective as well. Yes, sure, you can maybe briefly look at their perspective as well, but most of the time, I think 99% of the time should be on your POV. You should be just watching your own POV and see what kind of value I get. Why is that the case? Okay, why it's really important is because you cannot gain information from in the game. You know, in the game, you cannot gain all that information like you can in a replay viewer. That's why if I'm watching through my POV, it's easier for me to understand what kind of decisions I should be doing right in that moment because I'm watching my POV. That's how you would do it in a game. So it doesn't make sense to watch it from third view unless you doing some macro macro stuff. Need to look at the rest of the team so I know who to blame. Yeah. Should what if you be just of a bad gameplay or a game you lose? Okay, so this is something I mentioned at the start. You just want to review any game. I usually recommend close game. Okay, just make sure you review somewhat of a close game where I think it's usually good indicators the time. If you have really long time in the game, maybe it's 25 minutes, 23 minutes, then just review that one. It should be good. It should be good, really, most of the time. And yeah, you just looking to watch every fight and understand how can I gain value in there. I hope all of that makes sense. Does this process, I really want to make sure you guys get it. Do you have any questions about all that process so far? Good call on using time as indicator of, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let me say, I also often use the free cam to better understand the overall positions of my team. Yeah, that's good. Well, you can kind of just, if you wondering where, let's just put it this way, I think it's fine, but spend most of your time on your POV so you can also just not be too biased or like so it's gonna be easier for you to implement in your next games. Because when you this out of you, you're watching everybody else, then yeah, definitely it's easier to make decisions when we see all that information in a replay viewer, but right in the game, I think it's hard. So need something simple, concise, really stuff like that. To be honest, that is it. Like, I know it's really brief, but this is how you self-water review. This is how you self-water review, and just maybe if there are any questions, I can answer those. The topic headers, so to say. Let me see. Some of this is I don't know what I don't know. What are the lenses that we would look through first? Like, is decision making the source of most mistakes? Okay, let me actually specify this. Okay, I understand what I mean. Okay, let me just write it down for you. Choose one scene, watch the game through the lens of that scene. Okay, so yeah, I'll give you an example about positioning. Yeah, so this could be cover, angles, power positions. What about decisions? Okay, so I'm watching my game. It again, but because of the feeling, I feel that I lost the game based on decisions. So what's the player told me? For example, right in that session, I showed you an example. It felt like the attention was not in the right spot, and actually, a lot of it was right. Yeah, they've been struggling with target priority. So yeah, decisions. It's target priority. Oh, sorry, target priority. It can also be your ability usage. It can also be your ultimates, just, let's say, ult usage. Okay? It can also be your, let me think, target priority, ability usage, just awareness, okay? But this one might be sound a little bit too vague. Okay, I can just specify scouting. Okay, let's just specify, say, scouting. And with scouting, you can specify scouting cooldowns, or scouting ultimates, or scouting positions, or scouting. What else you can scout? Just, yeah, enemy threats overall, just kind of threatening angles. But this is kind of, yeah, this is what I meant with positions. You just trying to scout enemy positions, enemy threatening positions. So enemy threatening positions. I think it's gonna be good enough. Okay. What about this positioning as well? What else we can add? Cover, angles, power positions. I also have this idea of the kill zone. Kill zone is the area where most of your team can do stuff. And this is a little bit too much. Okay, I have to make it smaller. Let me just do this. Okay. Now, the third idea, yeah, the third lens bin example. Let's say it's our timing, okay? Timing, it could be timing with your rest of your team, just specify watching that most of your team can do stuff, so timing with team, okay? If you're not playing tank, then you can also look at your tank, in my opinion, a little bit more, because tank is really important. They initiate the pressure. If you also trying to time the pressure on the cooldowns, I think is good. So timing with cooldowns. And most importantly, so I'm gonna put it first, timing with ults. That's what I think. But timing can be about anything, really. Timing can be about anything. Tempo? Tempo question mark. Yeah, let me read the questions. Okay, it was a good lesson. Can't wait for the session tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, same. Seems as the word meant. Do we have time to spend 5-10 minutes reviewing words from people in this current class? Well, today I guys, I really want to. I just don't have enough time because I got a session. I think the next VOD, I promise, well, the next class we'll review. Because the next class, I wanted to focus on target priority, most likely. That's what we talked about today. But yeah, seems as the word amend. Yeah, do we, let me see, tempo question mark. Yeah, let's review the tempo. So example of the tempo is, yeah, tempo is the pacing of the game. How do I understand it is who has an advantage, who has disadvantage. So acting depending on advantage, disadvantage you got. Maybe if I have an advantage, I can push, take a little bit more space. If I have a disadvantage, I can try to give up some space. And you can also have an even situation. You can have an even situation and just try to hold the space sometimes. Target priority as a class would be huge. Love that idea for the next class. Yeah, I think this one is really important in general. A lot of people, they just tell, well, you gotta shoot those targets, you gotta shoot maybe their support, so you gotta shoot 200 HP, well, squishy targets, yeah? It's not the most ideal, but yeah, you can kind of have these factors of what you can shoot. The final one, yeah, the final one's mechanics. Yeah, so okay, let's just say example tempo. The last one. Okay, the last one is mechanics. Mechanics with this, I think it's your aim. It's just how do you aim? It's your mouse control. It's also your movement, and that's it. I cannot think about anything right now. Anything else yet? Let me just make it smaller again. Okay, so you guys can use it later. Plain strange, you can honestly say all feel and little think on it. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, target priority, exactly. Yeah, it's really important. It's really important to make sure you push the right angles. You just push them back and can control space because of it. Yeah, but so far that's it. I hope all of that makes sense. What I mentioned so far, all of those themes and yeah, the process overall. By the way, you guys can add any other themes you can just let's say you come up with something specific again, just related to your decisions, or maybe something specific related to your positioning. That's fine. You can also review that. You can also review that, and that's what I do in the sessions too. I think there might be some people who struggle with how do they move from corner to corner, or they just not using horizontal cover as much. Horizontal cover is your high ground. You can use your high ground as cover, or you can use verticality as your cover. Stuff like that. Yeah, any final questions? Any final questions, guys? The target priority for me is simple. Aim at the primary targets, but then hit whoever you have in range. Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's good. So the thing about target priority, it's target priority educates where to put your attention. And a lot of it is really based on your positioning. If you know where to position the characters, then you choose the targets. What's convenient for you? Generally speaking, if you know they're good targets, they just educate. Yeah, they can educate the positioning on the map. Okay, guys. So if you want to unmute, maybe ask any final questions, then yeah, we'll be glad to cover those. But yeah, I hope all of that makes sense so far. Fantastic coach. Always nice to find out what you do wrong in front of an audience. That's fine. That's fine. No, well, I just used your example because we've done 2 watts in a row, so I think it's good. I think it's good to use. But really, if we do anything else, maybe two watts in a row, I could actually use mine as well. I could actually use mine too, but it was really a long time ago. All right. Right. So I'm gonna end the stream and I will see everybody later. I'm gonna just stop the recording. I will post every notes in the class and reels. But so far that's it. I think really important topic to go over it. Thank you, great session. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I'm glad to help you out. And I think it's most of you guys just help me out with the theme, just to come up with let's go over how to self-motivate you. Yeah,